Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on Tuesday, where are we? 12th of August. Wednesday, the 12th of August, even. It's not Tuesday. Paul needs to get his correct day. Dearie me. And in the news today, Melbourne, we have results from the A-League. The Indian government give note to BCCI. Van Wyck has been... that was yesterday, was the Van Wyck being cited, and I've not seen the result of that, so I need to look that one up. Sorry, folks. The Crusaders admit to damaging their brand new trophy. The Thunder lose out to the Suns, and NBL is looking at their options. Linda Coe is teeing off in Scotland this weekend. The start of the 2021 Tour de France has changed, and we also have cancellations of the Athletes Village at the Commonwealth Games. So this is your best way to start the day, up to speed with all the important sports news here on New Zealand Sports Radio. And let's kick off with the football news this morning. Yeah, Melbourne City have drawn 2-2 with Adelaide United. That's in the A-League. That is Adelaide United's last game of the regular season, and also might be their last game of the entire season, because the Western United sit just 3 points behind them and have 3 games left to play. That does mean now that also confirms that Perth Glory will be joining Brisbane Roar, the Wellington Phoenix, Melbourne City and Sydney FC in the finals series. So it just comes down to Western United's last 3 games. Can they get enough points to climb ahead of Adelaide United? The Newcastle Jets, Western Sydney Wanderers, Melbourne Victory and Central Coast Mariners will all miss out on the final series over there in the A-League. We have 2 games this evening. Perth Glory will place Western United, and in a game that doesn't really matter now, Western Sydney Wanderers will play Melbourne Victory. Moving on to the UEFA Champions Cup, and today or overnight tonight, Atalanta will play Paris Saint-Germain in the quarterfinals. So look out for that game, hopefully, and the result there. I'm going to hand you over to Ashwin now, who is going to take us through our cricket update.
And good morning, Paul, and good morning to all our viewers and listeners out there on the interweb. And in something that I thought had already been achieved, the BCCI has received official permission from the government of India to conduct the IPL 2020 in UAE. Now, as I said, I was quite surprised that the Indian government had to go to that level to provide a permission slip to the BCCI. Amongst the Indian government's concern was the finding of a replacement sponsor for Vivo. Earlier this week, Vivo pulled out of their naming rights sponsorship, which started in 2017. Moving on, and Jimmy Anderson will keep trucking on. Anderson has said he has no intention of retiring from Test cricket and reiterated his desire to carry on until the next Ashes series. Anderson's average over the summer has not been great at 41.6, although the stats don't really tell the story of how well he has actually been bowling. Now, reporting on the right Ollie, the bowler, not the batter, Ollie Robinson has been added to the Biosecure England team for a second test at the Ageas Bowl. Given the rotation policy in place, there could be some changes for the second test bowling lineup for England. In saying that, they have pretty much used the same 4 bowlers since the first test loss to the West Indies, the only change being due to a Jofra Archer infraction where he decided to go and visit family out of the Biosecure bubble. Ross Taylor is not sure whether he'll make the postponed T20 World Cup. Currently in Trinidad for the 2020 CPL, Taylor will be 37 by the time the next T20 World Cup will be run. He stated, as you get older, things slow down, but your trainings and experience and your mind become even more important. Taylor will be playing for the Guyana Amazon Warriors in this year's version of the CPL. And finally, New Zealand cricket has set plans in motion to have host a full summer of cricket later this year. The country expects to play host to the West Indies, Pakistan, Australia, and Bangladesh over 37 days in the summer. David White has said he is confident of setting up biosecure bubbles similar to those ones being used by the English and Wales Cricket Board for their summer of cricket that's currently going on at the moment. Now, the only obviously issue that we have is that today we're in lockdown level 3. So we'll actually see how that impacts sport over the next coming few days. I'll get the words out right eventually. And that today is our cricket news. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Ashwin, for that update. And we'll hand you over now to Stephen, who will take us through our birthdays.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and good morning to Ashwin as well. Very much surreal times happening right here, especially in Auckland, being in level 3. But the birthdays continue. A former Munster and Ireland A utility back, now coaching the Hurricanes. A former Blues and Crusaders midfield back who ended up playing for Le Bleu, and a middle distance runner who wrote himself into New Zealand sporting folklore. Richard John Dick Taylor, MNZM, born this day, the 12th of August 1948, is a former New Zealand runner who mostly competed in distances from 1,500 metres to 10,000 metres. Taylor was born in Timaru in 1948. He is best known for winning the 10,000 metres at the 1974 Commonwealth Games in Christchurch, New Zealand. Taylor competed at the 1970 and 1974 Commonwealth Games as well as the 1972 Summer Olympics. Arthritis cut short Taylor's running career. In 2014, New Year's Honours List, Taylor was appointed a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to athletics. Moving right along, Tony Marsh, born this day, the 12th of August 1972 in Rotorua, is a New Zealand-born former rugby union player who has represented France, playing at centre. Marsh joined the Blues Super Rugby team in 1986, winning the Super 12 in 97, before switching a year later to the Crusaders, whom he also won the title with in 1998. He is one of the only players to have won back-to-back Super Rugby titles with different teams. That's something pretty interesting to hang on to for the rest of your life. After 3 years in France, he became eligible to play for Le Bleus, and Bernard Laporte named him in the French squad in 2001. He went on to win 21 French caps between 2001 and 2004, scoring 7 tries and helping France win the Grand Slam in 2002. God, what a resume. Super Rugby titles, Grand Slams, unbelievable. He also had a twin brother, loose forward Glenn Marsh, a very good player as well. And finally, Jason Holland, born this day, the 12th of August 1972, is a New Zealand former rugby union player footballer who played for Munster from 1999 until 2008. He also worked as the Munster's backs coach in 2008. Holland also represented Ireland A. He returned to his native New Zealand in 2012 to become the assistant coach to Canterbury in the ITM Cup before moving to the Hurricanes as an assistant under John Plumtree before progressing onto his current job, where he is the head coach of the Hurricanes and doing a pretty good job this year. That's our birthdays today, guys. I'll be back shortly with league news.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for that. Looking out there, apparently Van Wyck's sighting was supposed to happen on Monday at 7 p.m., but there are no reports as to what the outcome of that sighting was. So we have to keep looking into that one, and as soon as we have an update, we'll let you know, folks. The Super Rugby Aotearoa champions have admitted that their brand new trophy has been damaged. It got dropped, and there is some damage to the base, to the wooden base bit, as well as the. And I'm going to unfortunately probably mispronounce this piece. Sorry, folks, but the Punamu. Yes, thank you, Stephen. Punamu.
Yep.
Was initially missing on some of the photos, but it has been. But some the rumors say that it was that there was a quick ask around, folks. Where's it gone? And it very quickly turned up. So that looks like it has been reattached already. They are the Crusaders are saying that they've reached out to New Zealand Rugby and sought cultural advice as to how to go about to fix the trophy. I know there were a few comments on Twitter that says, yeah, that the damage is gives the trophy some character. And let's be honest, there's definitely history around rugby trophies getting damaged. So yes, that's part of, in some ways, it's part of rugby culture that these things do happen. As both Ashwin and Stephen have alluded to, New Zealand has gone into lockdown level 2 countrywide and lockdown level 3 in Auckland due to cases of coronavirus being found outside of isolation. That goes through until Friday midnight. So the Blues versus the Crusaders, that is due to be the final that isn't a final, playing this weekend in Auckland, is in doubt, and we'll have to see how that impacts the Super Rugby fixtures in particular, but also all sport this coming weekend. I'm going to hand you back to Stephen now, who's going to take us through our NRL update.
Thanks again, Paul. Just before I do that, trophy's called Tukotahi Aotearoa, which is basically stand first New Zealand. In Māoridom, not always a good thing when you break a taonga like that. Obviously, in Māoridom, a trophy like a greenstone is held in high regard, and it's never really a good sign when you break one. It's almost like a curse. So I can see Ashwin with a big smile on his face at the minute. So it's never good. Interestingly enough, I know for some of you, not all superstitious out there, but I'm very superstitious. And in my experience, when a taonga like that has been broken, it's never a good sign. We'll probably leave that to the believe it or not files, if you know what I mean.
Let's just be clear that Ashwin's not happy that the trophy's necessarily broken, but he might be happy that the Crusaders get cursed.
Might be jinxed. That's it. Yeah, as Steve was alluded to, there's bad omens, so to speak, or omens to breaking something like that of cultural significance, and hence I suppose the Crusaders are looking to find what they need to do.
Yeah, thankfully, it looks like the greenstone piece is still intact, and it's just the wooden base that's been damaged by the looks of the photos that we've seen. But anyway, yes, hand you back to Stephen.
Yeah, I think they obviously, you're right on the money, Ashwin. They obviously know it's an issue, and that's why they're seeking cultural advisement moving forward. But I think there's just a lesson there. To be honest, they're a great side and they're a great franchise, but to be honest, it's a bit disappointing, in my opinion. But it is just my opinion, not the opinion of that New Zealand Sport Radio. We'll move right on to. Did you like that, guys? Did you?
That was awesome.
We'll move right on to
the views contained are not necessarily of the station.
Very much so. We'll move right on to rugby league this morning. The Warriors team is named, and Tavatai Pangai Jr. is set to be cut from the NRL for a COVID breach. But we'll start with the Warriors team that was named for their game coming up this weekend. Lachlan Burr returns to the front row, replacing suspended lone prop Jack Hetherington, and the only change to the Warriors starting lineup for the Vodafone Warriors 14th round NRL clash against the competition leader Penrith at Central Coast Stadium in Gosford on Friday. That's a 8 p.m. kickoff New Zealand time, or 6 p.m. local time. Since returning from a 4-game injury and forced absence, Burr has been in impressive form from the bench in the last 3 outings against the Sydney Roosters, West Tigers and Manly Warrior Sea Eagles. The 27-year-old produced one of the best performances of his career in the 26-20 win over the Tigers when he made 150 metres from 17 runs plus 23 tackles in his 44 minutes on the field. His elevation from the interchange sees Asaya Papali named in the number 17 jersey for his 58th career appearance after last being used in the gritty 10-18 loss to the defending premiers, the Sydney Roosters. Coming on to the extended bench is Josh Curran, that for Warriors team. From fullback, Roger Tuivasa, Sheck, Patrick Herbert, Adam Pompey, Peter Hiku, George Jennings, Cody Nikorima, Chanel Harris-Tavita. In the forwards, Jermaine Tonua Brown, who I've been really impressed with this year, Carl Lawton, Lachlan Burr, Iliasa Katoa, Tohu Harris and Jazz Tavanga make up the starting 13. From the bench there, the interchange, Wayne Egan, Adam Blair, Daniel Alvaro, Asaya Papali on the interchange bench. And of course, we're talking COVID at the moment. Not good news for Brisbane Broncos forward Tavita Pangai Jr., who reportedly will be sacked by the club for breaching COVID-19 protocols. Several media outlets, including the Courier Mail's Peter Badell, reported Pangai Jr. has an issues breach notice by the club on Tuesday and will have his $650,000 a year contract torn up. Ouch. The 24-year-old broke the NRL bubble when he visited a friend's function at a barber shop last Saturday and has since entered a 14-day isolation period. God, that's a lot to think about. The star forward will not be able to sign with another club as it has passed the August 3 deadline, meaning he won't play another game this year. He also won't be paid out a single cent. Pangai Jr. is also facing a hefty fine from the NRL for his breach of the biosecurity protocols, while he had already been ruled out of the Broncos' next two games. The Tongan International's breach came after the game's most experienced coach, remembering Wayne Bennett, broke the bubble last Wednesday when he went out for lunch to a popular Sydney restaurant. Then Dragons forward Paul Vaughan also breached the protocols by attending a cafe on Thursday. Bennett was handed a $20,000 fine, while Vaughan received a $10,000 fine. The pair were also stood down for a fortnight to serve the mandatory self-isolation period. Now, I've got to ask, guys, is that consistent? It seems like two guys get a fine, one guy gets completely kicked out of the game, or has he got other issues going on as well?
I guess the other difference is that the other two that got fined went to somewhere to eat with someone in their bubble, whereas he went to an event with other people. So he's deliberately gone to mix with other people, whereas there's a difference there in the kind of event and how they've broken the bubble.
But there has been other cases where players have made contact with people outside their bubble, hasn't there? Or
I think that was more during lockdown itself. And since they got back to playing this, they've been much more sensible than actually. But so yeah, during the actual lockdown, then they were breaking the laws in the country rather than breaking the protocols in the in the actual sport.
Yeah, I was just looking at Hugh's comment there in terms of walking. This is like Wayne Bennett went with somebody in his bubble, but you know when they have contact with people in their bubble, who knows where the people in their bubble have been as well, though, isn't it? Like if they're talking about family members, have they stayed inside the house only talking to Wayne Bennett, or you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And look, they it's not like the NBA where they're actually in total isolation and people are providing food for them. They still have to go to supermarkets, etc., to buy their food.
Right.
So it's not. It's
not a full isolation type scenario.
No, it's a different one over there. Moving on, and I'm probably going to be asking boys for some help here, as I'm going to butcher a name, unfortunately. But I missed out on the news about Samoa have appointed their head coach for the Sevens, which is Brian Lima, is going to be head coaching the Sevens.
He did well there.
He did very well, Paul.
But it's their head coach for their 15 side that unfortunately Salilala Mapusama. Mapusoa, thank you. He will be the head coach for the 15 team. The 40-year-old played for on 33 times for his country and represented them at 2 Rugby World Cups. So good luck to both of their, or best wishes to both of their new head coaches. Not sure when they'll actually get to coach their teams, but hopefully they'll be successful bringing Samoa up the rankings.
And a big part of the Highlanders as well. He was when they were, I think, early days, wasn't he, Steve?
Yeah, very dependable
Second five.
footballer. Yeah, very solidly built guy.
Yep. Moving on then to basketball news, and we had our first basketball show last night here on New Zealand Sports Radio, and that show with Daniel is keeping an eye on the Thunder, who came up short against the Suns, 101 to 128. After leading in the first quarter, the Suns came back to win that one, particularly dominating the third quarter of that game. Now, the game meant more to the Suns than the Thunder, as the Thunder are already in the finals, but the Suns are fighting it out for that final spot there. The Australian NBL, so keeping with the basketball, is considering a number of different options, which includes looking at how the NRL and other sports have their isolation in Australia, but also potentially coming over and having a bubble in New Zealand to run their sport. Clearly, this was all before the latest cases that we have had. So we'll see what format the NBL will take. There's lots of options on the table. It's currently their pre-season, but two of their teams that are based in Melbourne, for example, have stopped training due to the lockdown that is happening, or just the outbreak that is happening down there. Linda Coe played in the weekend in the US and will be playing in Scotland this weekend, despite the fact that there is a 14-day quarantine in the UK for people arriving from overseas. That's because there is an exception for elite athletes. And the LPGA Tour testing and other biosecurity measures allow this to happen. So the LPGA Tour will be chartering a flight over from where the tournament was in the US to Scotland, so that the golfers plus their caddies can space themselves out on the plane and fly over, and obviously not have contact with other people. Also, this does mean the exemption is only for the caddies and the players. It's not for other family members or other traveling people with them. A lot of the female golfers have got some family members that do travel with them, especially the younger players. Yes, that's interesting that that the whole LPGA Tour will move from the US, where it was in Ohio, to Scotland this weekend before returning back to the US later in the month for more tournaments. Moving on then, and in the Tour de France, the 2021 start will be held in the French port of Brest rather than the Danish capital, Copenhagen. That will be delayed, and the Copenhagen start will happen in 2022. And this is because of a clash with the rescheduled Euro 2020 tournament, which is obviously in the football tournament. So we're seeing the knock-on effects now of these cancelled and postponed tournaments having on other sports. Talking about other sports, the organisers of the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games have abandoned plans for building an athletes' village. They were supposed to, or they had promised to build an athletes' village that was going to cost, well, the original budget was £469 million, but that had gone over £500 million. And whilst it was initially seen as an essential item, it now looks like it's going to cost too much. And they're blaming increased construction due to COVID-19. Increased construction costs due to COVID-19. Not sure that I think that looks like a scapegoat, in all honesty. But what do I know about building? So instead, they will be using two universities' student accommodation instead. So two locations rather than just the one. With obviously the increasing cost of these events and the COVID issues, you got to wonder, will there be more budget style events like this rather than all purpose built venues? Looking forward, we'll see if this is going to be a model that will be used again. You have now started the day the best way, up to speed with all of the important sports news. Don't forget, this evening we have the Standoff Show for your weekly league fix. And I will be back with the team tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. because, yes, that's right, we bring you the morning sports briefing at 7 a.m. every single morning, 7 days a week, so that you can start your day the best way, up to speed with all the important sports news.